Imagine you've reached a point in your life where the weight of the world is too much to bear. You're lost in a sea of uncertainty, overwhelmed by loneliness, and haunted by the feeling that you'll never escape this darkness. Every step feels like a struggle, and no matter how many people are around you, you feel like you're screaming inside, but no one can hear you. Now, picture this. In the midst of your pain, something profound happens. An ancient wisdom whispers into your soul, promising not a way out but a way through. The suffering you've been fighting against, the sadness that clings to you like a shadow, is not a sign that you are broken. It's not a punishment. It is the very doorway to the awakening of your true self, the self you've forgotten exists beneath all the layers of fear, doubt, and confusion. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is not the end of the road. It's where the journey begins. The darkest moments are often the ones where we encounter the greatest transformation. It's in those moments of deep despair that we are given the chance to rise, to shed the false layers we've built, and to uncover a strength we never knew we had. But what does this mean for you? How can you find the light in your darkest hour? What if the pain you've been running from is exactly what's needed to propel you into a life of peace, wisdom, and inner freedom? The truth is, the path to healing doesn't lie in escaping your suffering. It lies in embracing it, in seeing it as a teacher rather than a curse. It's through the deepest pain that we often find our most profound revelations. But are you ready to sit with your pain, to allow it to open your heart, to transform you, and to lead you to a place of peace you never thought possible? Don't stop now. The answers to these questions lie in the teachings of Buddhism. The journey is not easy, but it's a journey worth taking. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your suffering might just be the greatest gift you've ever received. If you're ready to uncover the hidden wisdom in your pain and learn how to transform your loneliness and depression into powerful, life-changing lessons, then stay with us. But before we dive deeper into this journey, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Buddhism in Every Moment. By subscribing, you'll not only be supporting our channel, but also giving us the motivation to continue bringing you more powerful teachings and stories that can guide you on your path to peace and inner awakening. So, join us now and be part of a community that walks the path of mindfulness and enlightenment together. The truth of suffering is not one many people willingly confront. It's often the last thing we want to acknowledge when we're struggling, especially in a world that constantly tells us to avoid discomfort at all costs. We are conditioned to chase happiness and run from pain, but this relentless pursuit leaves us disconnected from something much deeper. What if, instead of seeking ways to escape our suffering, we embraced it as part of our very existence? Buddhism offers a radically different perspective. Life, according to Buddhist teachings, contains suffering. The Buddha's first noble truth is clear about this. Suffering is not an anomaly. It's not something that happens to us because we've done something wrong. It's part of the human condition. It's a shared experience. Suffering, whether in the form of sadness, loneliness, or any other form of emotional turmoil, isn't a punishment. It's a teacher. This is where the teachings of Buddhism radically shift our understanding of pain. When we view suffering as an interruption to life, as something foreign or unnecessary, we add to the suffering itself. We try to avoid it, suppress it, or distract ourselves from it. But what if we stopped fighting our pain? What if instead we sat with it and listened to what it had to teach us? In the Buddhist tradition, suffering is not the enemy. It's a guide, a mirror reflecting something deeper, something essential for our spiritual awakening. This is where true transformation begins, not in denying the pain, but in embracing it. Life doesn't ask us to deny our suffering, to pretend it isn't there, or to bury it beneath layers of distraction and avoidance. Life asks us to feel it, to sit with it, to look at it not with fear but with curiosity. Only when we fully acknowledge suffering for what it is can we begin to unravel the wisdom hidden within it. But let's be honest, this is difficult. It's far easier to numb ourselves, to drown in distractions, to pretend that everything is fine when deep down we feel empty. Society tells us that sadness is something to be ashamed of, a weakness to be hidden away. We're told to put on a happy face, to pretend that we have it all together. And in doing so, we isolate ourselves, hiding our true feelings, thinking that there is something wrong with us for feeling what we feel. Breaking free from the shame of sadness is one of the most liberating aspects of Buddhist practice. Understanding that it is okay to feel pain, to experience moments of deep sadness, is the first step toward freedom. It is through acceptance, not avoidance, that we find true healing. When we stop viewing sadness as a burden, we can begin to see it as a natural part of life. It is the contrast to joy, the shadow that gives light its depth. Without experiencing the depths of sadness, we cannot fully appreciate the heights of happiness. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It doesn't mean we give up on our well-being or stop trying to improve our lives. Acceptance means we stop fighting what is. We stop resisting the natural ebb and flow of life. Instead of running away from pain, we turn toward it, welcoming it as part of our human experience. This is not a passive act, but an active choice, a choice to acknowledge the truth of our feelings without judgment. It is the ability to sit in the discomfort, not to wallow in it, but to see it for what it is, a temporary visitor, a teacher, a guide. There is great power in observing our pain without judgment. When we sit quietly with our suffering, we begin to see that it is not the pain itself that causes suffering, but our reaction to it. The mind tries to label, categorize, and resist. It tells us that we should not feel this way, that this emotion is wrong or undesirable. But these thoughts only intensify the pain. It's like trying to push the ocean back with our hands. The more we resist, the stronger the waves become. But when we stop fighting, the waves calm down. The tide recedes. We realize that the storm doesn't last forever. This is the wisdom of Buddhism, the wisdom that teaches us to sit with suffering, not to escape from it. The Buddha did not promise us a life free from pain. He promised us a way to navigate pain with grace, wisdom, and compassion. When we face suffering with open hands, without clinging to it or pushing it away, we allow it to pass through us like a river, cleansing and renewing us. When we stop judging our pain, we stop identifying with it. We are not our sadness, our anger, or our loneliness. These emotions are visitors in the vast landscape of our being. They arise, they stay for a while, and then they leave. We are not defined by our emotions, but by our ability to observe them, to let them come and go without attachment. The more we practice this, the more we realize that suffering, when met with acceptance, is no longer a burden. It becomes an opportunity for growth, transformation, and deeper understanding. In these moments, we are called to trust that we are not broken by our suffering, but shaped by it. To trust that through suffering, we are becoming more whole, more awake, more alive than ever before. The pain that feels unbearable in the moment becomes the very gateway to our awakening. It is through suffering that we discover our deepest strengths and our greatest capacity for compassion. This is the profound, liberating truth that Buddhism offers. Suffering is not something to avoid or run from. It is a part of life's journey, a path that leads us to wisdom, peace, and freedom. Embrace it not as a curse, but as a teacher, a guide to a deeper, more meaningful life. And when we do, we find that the suffering we once feared is the very thing that awakens us to our true nature. There is a moment in every soul's journey when pain feels all-consuming. It often comes when we least expect it, on quiet nights when the weight of our emotions settles in, or in the midst of an ordinary day when the sting of loneliness hits us like a wave. In those moments, we can feel completely isolated, as if no one understands, as if no one could possibly know the depth of the sorrow in our hearts. But what if, instead of running from this pain, we embraced it with open arms? What if we approached our suffering with love, with kindness, and with the same compassion we would offer to a close friend who was hurting? This, in essence, is the practice of self-compassion, and it is one of the most powerful tools we have for healing. In Buddhism, the concept of metta, or loving kindness, is central to the path of awakening. Metta is not simply a passive feeling, it's an active practice, a deliberate act of sending love and kindness toward ourselves and others. It's about nurturing ourselves in the same way we would care for someone we love deeply. In the midst of our pain, metta invites us to be kind to ourselves, to treat ourselves with the same tenderness that we would offer to a friend in need. Too often, when we are in emotional turmoil, we forget to offer this kindness to ourselves. Instead, we become our own harshest critics, telling ourselves we should be stronger, that we should be better, or that we should be able to snap out of it. But this only deepens the wound. Compassion is the antidote to this inner turmoil. Self-compassion, as taught in Buddhist philosophy, is not a sign of weakness or indulgence. It is a profound act of strength. It means giving yourself permission to feel your pain without judgment, without shame, and without self-condemnation. It means understanding that vulnerability is not a flaw, but a doorway to healing. The practice of metta calls us to open our hearts, not only to others but to ourselves, especially in the moments when we feel broken, isolated, or overwhelmed. It teaches us that there is no shame in being human. There is no shame in feeling pain. In fact, it is through embracing our vulnerability with compassion that we find the strength to move forward, to heal, and to transform. When we learn to embrace ourselves with compassion, we begin to transform the loneliness that so often accompanies depression. Loneliness often arises when we feel disconnected from others, when we believe that no one truly understands what we're going through. But this isolation can be magnified when we fail to recognize that we are not alone in our suffering. Every human being on this planet experiences pain and heartache. We are all connected by our shared humanity. But compassion reminds us that we don't have to navigate our pain alone. Through self-compassion, we offer ourselves the reassurance that we are worthy of love, even when we don't feel strong, even when we don't feel like we have it all together. It's in these moments of vulnerability that we begin to heal, not by avoiding the pain, but by leaning into it with gentleness and care. Compassion is not a fleeting feeling. It's a transformative force that ripples outward, touching not just our own hearts, but the hearts of those around us. When we begin to treat ourselves with kindness, we naturally extend that same kindness to others. As we heal, we become more attuned to the suffering of others, and we begin to recognize the shared nature of our human experience. We no longer view others' pain as separate from our own. Instead, we see it as a reflection of our own vulnerability. This is the profound ripple effect of compassion. It connects us to each other in ways that words alone cannot. Real-life examples of compassion in action abound. Consider the story of a woman who struggled with depression for many years. She felt isolated and misunderstood, convinced that her sadness was a burden to those around her. But over time, she began to practice self-compassion. She started by simply acknowledging her pain, sitting with it instead of trying to push it away. She stopped criticizing herself for feeling sad and instead learned to speak to herself with kindness. Slowly, she began to feel a shift. Her depression didn't magically disappear, but the constant weight of guilt and self-judgment lifted. And as she learned to offer herself compassion, she found it easier to extend that same kindness to others. The more she practiced loving kindness toward herself, the more she noticed how it transformed her relationships. She became more patient, more understanding, and more open-hearted, not just with others but with herself. Through compassion, she not only began to heal herself, but she also became a source of comfort and support to those around her. Learning to sit with pain is another critical aspect of Buddhist practice. The Buddha did not offer a path of escape from suffering. Instead, he taught us how to sit with our pain, to observe it with curiosity and compassion. In moments of emotional turmoil, it can be tempting to run, to distract ourselves with anything that will take the edge off. But true healing comes when we stop running and start being present with what we feel. In Buddhist meditation, there is a technique called shamatha, or calm abiding, which encourages us to simply sit with our thoughts and emotions, allowing them to arise and pass without judgment. This practice helps us develop the inner strength to observe our pain without becoming overwhelmed by it. Sitting with pain does not mean we become consumed by it. It means we learn to recognize that pain is temporary and that we are not defined by it. By sitting with our emotions in this way, we begin to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. We begin to see that our pain is not who we are, but rather something we experience. As we sit with it, we start to notice the layers beneath the surface, what is driving the pain, what lies hidden within it. And through this process, we begin to release the grip that pain has on us. The more we practice sitting with our pain, the more we find that it no longer has the power to control us. Instead, we become the observers of our experience, allowing it to come and go with ease. In Buddhism, pain is not a foreign enemy to be defeated. It is an integral part of the human experience, and it is through facing pain with compassion and mindfulness that we can truly heal. The more we practice self-compassion, the more we begin to understand that pain in all its forms is a teacher. It teaches us to be present. It teaches us to be gentle with ourselves. It teaches us that we are not alone in our suffering, and that through embracing it with love, we can move through it with grace and strength. Self-compassion is the path to healing, not because it eliminates our pain, but because it allows us to hold our pain with tenderness and care. It is through compassion that we find our way back to ourselves, to our true nature, and to the peace that lies within. The more we practice self-compassion, the more we find that we are capable of transforming our pain into wisdom, into strength, and into love. And in that transformation, we discover the true power of compassion, not just as a remedy for suffering, but as a way of life, a way of being that brings us closer to the peace we have been seeking all along. We often approach life with an expectation of stability, of things remaining as they are, especially when they bring us comfort. We build relationships, set goals, and create a vision for our futures, hoping that our dreams will stand the test of time. But what happens when the very foundation we've built begins to crumble? When the things we hold closest slip through our fingers like sand from an hourglass? It is in these moments when everything we've known starts to shift that we are forced to confront a powerful yet often uncomfortable truth: impermanence. In Buddhism, impermanence is not just a concept, it's a fundamental truth of existence. Everything in this world, our thoughts, our emotions, our relationships, and even our very lives, are in a constant state of flux. Nothing lasts forever. This includes the most painful experiences, the sadness, the loneliness, and the depression we sometimes feel. These emotions, though intense and consuming in the moment, are not permanent. They rise and fall like the tides, and they will eventually pass. The Buddha's teachings on impermanence remind us that we are not meant to cling to any experience, be it pleasure or pain. The more we try to hold on to these fleeting moments, the more we set ourselves up for suffering. When we become attached to the idea that happiness should last forever, or that pain should never come, we create our own misery. The truth is, we can never control the passage of time, nor can we control the changes that come with it. The only control we have is how we choose to respond to those changes. Understanding impermanence is not about denying our emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing that no feeling, no matter how intense, is permanent. This is a liberating realization. When we understand that sadness, for example, is not a permanent state but a passing storm, we no longer feel trapped by it. We can allow ourselves to feel the pain, acknowledge it, and then release it, knowing that it will eventually subside. This understanding provides a sense of relief, as we no longer have to fight against the natural flow of life. One of the most profound aspects of embracing impermanence is recognizing that it's not just our pain that changes, it's everything. Joy, success, love, and even the simple moments of happiness that we cherish are not immune to the force of impermanence. The beauty of life lies in its ever-changing nature. Without change, there would be no growth, no transformation, and no new possibilities. Impermanence allows us to experience the full spectrum of life, from sorrow to joy, from endings to beginnings. It is through embracing change that we find freedom. The power of letting go is often overlooked in a world that values control and stability. We cling to emotions, expectations, and outcomes, hoping that if we hold on tight enough, we can prevent them from slipping away. But attachment to permanence causes suffering. When we attach ourselves to the idea that things should stay the same, we create a mental prison, and we are left fighting against the natural flow of life. This resistance leads to stress, anxiety, and frustration, as we try to impose our will on a world that is constantly evolving. Learning to release attachment to negative emotions is one of the most powerful practices in Buddhist teachings. This doesn't mean that we suppress or ignore our feelings. Rather, it means that we stop identifying with them. We allow them to come and go without clinging to them as a part of who we are. Sadness doesn't define us. Anger doesn't define us. These emotions are experiences, not permanent states of being. When we stop holding on to them, we free ourselves from their grip. Letting go is not easy. It requires patience, trust, and a deep understanding that we don't need to control everything. The more we try to resist the natural ebb and flow of life, the more we struggle. But when we learn to release our attachment to outcomes and let go of our need to control, we create space for peace. We allow ourselves to flow with life instead of fighting against it. Embracing change as freedom is one of the most transformative shifts we can make in our lives. When we accept that everything is temporary, we stop fearing change. We stop holding on to the past, to what we think should have been, and we start embracing what is. Change becomes an opportunity for growth rather than something to fear. It's in the fluidity of life that we find true freedom. We are no longer trapped by the past or the future. We are free to live fully in the present moment, to experience each moment as it comes without judgment or expectation. One of the most powerful ways to practice letting go and embracing change is through mindfulness meditation. This practice encourages us to sit with our thoughts and emotions without clinging to them. Instead of trying to control or suppress what we feel, we simply observe it. We acknowledge it, allow it to exist, and then let it go. Over time, this practice helps us develop a deeper understanding of the impermanence of all things. We begin to realize that we are not our thoughts, not our emotions, and not our experiences. We are the awareness behind them, the observer who watches everything come and go. Another practice that helps us embrace change is gratitude. When we focus on what we have in the present moment, rather than what we have lost or what we wish we could control, we shift our perspective. Gratitude helps us appreciate the fleeting beauty of life, the moments that pass so quickly but are filled with so much meaning. By acknowledging the impermanence of our experiences, we can find joy in them without clinging to them. We can savor each moment, knowing that it won't last forever, but that it is precious in its transience. Embracing impermanence is not about resigning ourselves to a life of uncertainty or loss. It's about accepting that change is inevitable and learning to flow with it. It's about letting go of the need for control and trusting that life will unfold as it is meant to. When we embrace change, we open ourselves to new possibilities, new growth, and new experiences. We stop fighting against the natural rhythms of life and start dancing with them. The freedom that comes from embracing impermanence is profound. It frees us from the fear of loss, the fear of change, and the fear of the unknown. It allows us to live fully, to experience the highs and the lows without clinging to either. We become more resilient, more flexible, and more open to life. Change is no longer something to resist, but something to welcome with open arms. And in that welcoming, we discover a peace that is not dependent on the external world, but on our ability to flow with it. So, when life begins to shift around you, when things change in ways you didn't expect, remember this: everything changes. And in that change lies the freedom to grow, to learn, and to transform. Embrace impermanence. Let go of your attachment to the past, to what should have been, and to what you can't control. Embrace change, and in doing so, you will find the freedom and peace you have been searching for all along. In a world where we are constantly urged to seek more success, more possessions, more love, It's easy to get caught in the trap of attachment. We build our identities around the things we accumulate, the relationships we forge, and the achievements we attain. But what happens when these things shift or slip away? How do we navigate life when the things we've clung to so tightly begin to unravel? In Buddhism, non-attachment is not merely a concept, but a way of living, a path to freedom from the suffering that comes with clinging to things that are, by their very nature, impermanent. Non-attachment is not about detaching from life or emotions entirely, nor is it about retreating from the world. Instead, it's about learning to live with a sense of lightness, without the heavy burden of possessiveness or the fear of loss. Non-attachment in a Buddhist context refers to the ability to hold things loosely. It's the recognition that nothing in life is permanent, and that clinging to anything, be it material possessions, relationships, or even ideas, only leads to suffering. This understanding frees us from the burden of attachment, allowing us to experience life more fully without the anxiety of holding on too tightly. The beauty of non-attachment lies in its freedom. We are not prisoners of our desires or fears. Instead, we can experience joy without the constant worry that it will slip away. Non-attachment allows us to engage deeply with life, whether in our work, our relationships, or our passions, without needing to control the outcomes. It gives us the space to live fully, to embrace moments of happiness and sorrow alike, without being defined by them. It's crucial to distinguish non-attachment from indifference. The Buddha's teachings do not encourage us to live in a state of emotional coldness or apathy. Non-attachment does not mean that we stop caring about people or experiences. Rather, it means that we care without clinging. It's about recognizing that while we may deeply love and care for people or things, we do not attach our happiness, our sense of self-worth, or our inner peace to them. We appreciate and love them without the need for them to remain forever. This subtle shift from attachment to non-attachment brings emotional freedom. When we are attached to something, we often build our sense of self around it. We identify with our possessions, our successes, or even our pain, believing that they define who we are. But when we practice non-attachment, we loosen this grip and begin to realize that we are not defined by anything external. We are inherently whole and complete, regardless of what we have or what we have lost. This freedom from the need to control, to hold, or to possess, allows us to live with greater peace and joy. One of the most profound ways non-attachment can transform our emotional lives is by helping us let go of the emotional burdens that weigh us down. When we are attached to our emotions, whether it's sadness, anger, resentment, or fear, we become enslaved by them. These emotions become our identity, and we allow them to shape our experience of the world. But when we learn to practice non-attachment, we begin to recognize that emotions, like everything else, are temporary. They come and go like waves in the ocean. By letting go of our attachment to these emotions, we can experience them without being consumed by them. For example, consider someone who feels deeply depressed because they've experienced a breakup. Their sadness becomes all-encompassing, and they begin to identify themselves as someone who is broken, unworthy of love. But with the practice of non-attachment, they can begin to see their emotions for what they are, temporary and impermanent. They can feel the pain of the breakup without letting it define them. They can experience the sadness without allowing it to consume their entire being. This shift from attachment to non-attachment creates emotional freedom, freedom from the belief that our emotions define us, freedom from the fear that we are our pain. Incorporating non-attachment into our daily lives requires mindfulness and intentionality. It's about observing our thoughts, emotions, and attachments without getting caught up in them. For example, when we feel frustrated or upset, we can practice simply noticing the emotion without judgment. Instead of reacting impulsively or clinging to the feeling, we observe it with curiosity and compassion. This practice of mindful awareness helps us disengage from the emotional reactions that typically cause suffering. One of the most effective ways to cultivate non-attachment is through meditation. Meditation teaches us to observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. As we sit in silence, we learn to let go of our attachment to the thoughts that arise in our minds. We may have a thought about an upcoming event or a memory of something painful, but through meditation, we learn to simply observe these thoughts as they come and go, without trying to hold on to them or push them away. Over time, this practice strengthens our ability to live with greater ease and emotional freedom. Mindfulness techniques also help us in daily life. As we go about our day, we can practice mindfulness by paying attention to the present moment. Whether we are washing the dishes, walking down the street, or having a conversation, we can practice being fully present without becoming attached to the outcome or the experience. By engaging with the present moment without judgment or expectation, we free ourselves from the need to control what happens next. A powerful exercise for practicing non-attachment is learning to observe our emotions without clinging to them. When we feel something strong, be it happiness, sadness, frustration, or excitement, we can observe the feeling with an open mind. We can ask ourselves, what does this feeling feel like? Where do I feel it in my body? What is it telling me? By observing our emotions in this way, we create space between ourselves and the feeling. We no longer identify with it. It becomes something we experience, but not something that defines us. Another way to practice non-attachment is to let go of our attachment to outcomes. We often become attached to the idea that certain things must happen for us to feel fulfilled. We may think, if I get this job, I will be happy. Or, if I find the right relationship, I will feel whole. But non-attachment teaches us that happiness is not dependent on external circumstances. We can practice letting go of the need to control the outcome of our efforts, trusting that whatever happens will be for our highest good. This shift in perspective frees us from the constant need to chase happiness and allows us to experience peace regardless of the circumstances. Ultimately, non-attachment leads us to a place of profound freedom. We no longer feel the need to hold on to people, possessions, or experiences to feel complete. We can love deeply, work passionately, and engage with life fully without fearing loss. We begin to experience life as a flowing river, constantly changing, constantly moving forward, and always present in its beauty. Through the practice of non-attachment, we learn that true freedom lies not in our ability to control life, but in our ability to let it unfold as it is. Non-attachment is not about withdrawing from life or becoming indifferent to the world around us. It is about fully engaging with life while recognizing that nothing is permanent. It is about experiencing love, joy, and even pain, but without the need to cling to any of it. And in doing so, we find a peace that is unshakable, a freedom that transcends all of life's changes. We live in a world where emotions are often seen as the defining force behind our actions and sense of self. When we feel anger, sadness, joy, or fear, we tend to believe that these emotions are who we are. We allow them to take over, shaping our identity, defining our thoughts, and steering our actions. We often say, "I am sad," or "I am angry," as though these fleeting states are permanent parts of us. But what if emotions are not who we are? What if emotions are just visitors, arriving uninvited, staying for a while, and then leaving no trace but the lesson they carry? Buddhism teaches us to understand emotions not as a reflection of our identity, but as temporary states that arise and pass away, much like waves in the ocean. The Buddha's wisdom on emotions is simple yet profound. Emotions are impermanent. They do not define us. They are not who we are. Instead, they are simply part of the experience of being alive. Just as we don't identify ourselves as the weather, we must learn to stop identifying ourselves with our emotional states. In Buddhism, there is a teaching known as anatta, or the doctrine of non-self, which reminds us that there is no permanent self that clings to emotions, desires, or thoughts. We are not our thoughts, our feelings, or our pain. These are transient experiences that come and go. Emotions are just like clouds passing through the sky of our mind. Sometimes the sky is clear and sometimes it's stormy. But no matter how dark the clouds, the sky remains unchanged, vast and eternal. Similarly, our true nature, our essence, is not altered by the emotions that pass through us. Understanding emotions as impermanent allows us to detach from them, not by suppressing or ignoring them, but by observing them with awareness and acceptance. We do not need to be overwhelmed by them, nor do we need to resist them. Instead, we can view them as a part of the human experience, there to teach us but not to define us. The Buddha's teachings emphasize the importance of observing emotions without becoming them. This means that instead of identifying with our emotions, we learn to witness them with detachment. When we feel sadness, we can observe it. Ah, I am feeling sadness right now, without attaching any judgment or narrative to it. We don't need to say, I am sad because of this event, this person, this loss. Instead, we simply recognize, this is what sadness feels like in my body and mind. Through this practice of observation, we begin to loosen the grip that emotions have on us. We learn to step back from our feelings and watch them without getting caught in their current. Learning to witness emotions without judgment is a transformative practice. It allows us to break free from the cycle of emotional reactivity, where our emotions control us and dictate our actions. When we are reactive, we often act impulsively, saying things we regret or making decisions based on the intensity of our emotions. But when we observe our emotions with awareness, we create a space between the feeling and the reaction. This space allows us to choose how to respond, rather than simply reacting without thought. One of the most effective exercises for practicing emotional awareness and detachment is mindful observation. This involves sitting quietly and focusing on the sensations in our body as emotions arise. For example, when we feel anger, we can observe where the anger is felt in our body. Is it a tightness in the chest? A heat in the face? By focusing on the physical sensations of the emotion, we become more aware of how it manifests in us. This simple practice helps us create a sense of distance from the emotion, recognizing that it is an experience we are having, not something that defines us. Another powerful exercise is labeling emotions without judgment. When an emotion arises, we simply label it. This is anger. This is sadness. This is fear. By labeling our emotions in this way, we remove the emotional charge from them. We stop making the emotion personal or global. I am angry. I am a sad person. Instead, we see it as an isolated experience that is simply passing through. This practice creates a sense of space and perspective, helping us maintain our emotional equilibrium. Over time, this ability to observe without judgment can be life-changing. It allows us to stop being overwhelmed by our emotions. We begin to see that emotions are like the weather. They can be intense, but they are temporary. When we embrace this impermanence, we stop resisting or fighting our feelings. Instead, we allow them to be present without clinging to them, knowing that they will pass. The process of transforming emotional struggles into opportunities for growth is one of the most powerful aspects of Buddhist teachings. We are often taught that emotions like anger, sadness, or fear are negative, that they are things to be avoided or suppressed. But Buddhism encourages us to look deeper, to see how these emotions can be opportunities for self-reflection and transformation. When we experience emotional pain, whether it's from a personal loss, disappointment, or unmet expectations, it is easy to get caught up in the story we tell ourselves about the emotion. We begin to see ourselves as the victim, or as someone who is broken or incapable of moving forward. But Buddhism teaches us that pain is not something to avoid, it is something to embrace. The emotional pain we experience can be the gateway to greater wisdom, compassion, and understanding. By sitting with our pain, by observing it without judgment, we can begin to learn from it. We can discover the root of our emotional reactions, the fears, and insecurities that drive them. For example, when we experience anger, instead of simply reacting to it or suppressing it, we can ask ourselves, what is the source of this anger? What fear or unmet need is driving it? Through this inquiry, we begin to peel back the layers of the emotion, uncovering the deeper truths beneath it. This is where growth happens, when we allow ourselves to feel the emotion without judgment and use it as a mirror to see what is inside us that needs healing or transformation. In Buddhist teachings, there is also an emphasis on emotional fluidity, the ability to let emotions flow without holding onto them. Emotions are not meant to be trapped or repressed. They are meant to flow freely, like a river that moves and changes constantly. When we allow our emotions to flow, rather than holding onto them or bottling them up, we free ourselves from their grip. We stop fighting against the natural ebb and flow of life, and instead we learn to dance with it. One of the ways we can practice emotional fluidity is by engaging in breathing exercises. When we feel an intense emotion, we can take a few deep breaths, bringing our focus back to the present moment. By slowing our breath, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to calm the body and mind. This simple practice helps us create a sense of emotional space, allowing us to ride the wave of the emotion rather than being pulled under by it. Another powerful practice is moving through emotions. Instead of sitting in one place and stewing in negative emotions, we can move our bodies. Whether it's walking, yoga, or dancing, movement helps to release pent-up emotional energy. As we move, we allow the emotions to flow through us, rather than getting stuck in us. This practice fosters emotional resilience, the ability to feel deeply, but not be overwhelmed or consumed by our feelings. Embracing emotional fluidity is key to building emotional resilience. The more we allow ourselves to feel and release our emotions, the more we develop the strength to face whatever comes our way. We stop seeing our emotions as obstacles and begin to see them as part of the process of growth. With practice, we become less attached to any single emotion, knowing that it will pass and that we will emerge stronger on the other side. In the end, understanding emotions through the lens of Buddhism frees us from the belief that our feelings define who we are. We learn that emotions are simply visitors, passing through the vast landscape of our minds. They are not permanent, nor are they a reflection of our worth or identity. By practicing non-attachment and emotional awareness, we open ourselves to a more balanced, peaceful way of living, one where emotions flow freely without clinging, and where we can grow and transform through each experience, no matter how difficult. There is a subtle yet powerful truth about the human experience. Peace is not something that we need to chase, but something we must cultivate by learning to be present. In the chaos of our lives, it's easy to overlook the present moment. We spend so much time thinking about the future, planning, worrying, or anticipating what is to come, that we forget to notice what is unfolding right before us. Similarly, we get trapped in the past, replaying old regrets, mistakes, and moments of lost opportunity. The paradox is that while we are constantly running toward a future we cannot control, we neglect the only place where true peace can be found, the present moment. Mindfulness, a central practice in Buddhism, teaches us to return to the now. It offers us a way out of the endless cycle of mental chatter and emotional turmoil by helping us become aware of the present moment. The Buddha, in his teachings, emphasized that true peace does not reside in the past or future. It is found in the present, in the simplicity of each breath, each step, each sensation. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing our full attention to the present moment without distraction or judgment. When we are fully present, we experience life more deeply, more vividly. We are not caught up in what has happened or what will happen. We are simply here, experiencing the world as it is without interference from our minds. This is where peace resides, not in an idealized future or in a past we can never reclaim, but in the now, the space where life is constantly unfolding. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we realize that peace is not an external condition, but an internal state of being. It is the ability to observe life with clarity and equanimity, no matter what is happening around us. Mindfulness meditation is one of the most effective tools we have to cultivate this presence. The practice of mindfulness meditation involves sitting quietly, observing the breath, and bringing the mind's attention back to the present whenever it wanders. It's a simple practice, but its effects are profound. As we sit in stillness and focus on our breath, we begin to train our minds to let go of distractions, to quiet the constant stream of thoughts that often plague us. The more we practice, the more we realize that our minds don't need to be chaotic or noisy. We can learn to calm the storm within, creating a space of stillness and peace, no matter what is happening in the world around us. The beauty of mindfulness meditation is that it can be done anywhere at any time. You don't need a special cushion, a quiet room, or an elaborate setting. You can practice mindfulness while sitting in traffic, waiting in line, or even washing the dishes. The key is bringing your full attention to whatever you are doing in that moment. When we wash the dishes, we notice the sensation of the water running over our hands, the smell of the soap, the motion of our arms. We bring our full awareness to the task, allowing ourselves to be fully immersed in the experience without judgment or distraction. In doing so, we free ourselves from the mental clutter that often prevents us from experiencing peace. But mindfulness is not just about observing the present moment. It's also about embracing it, fully accepting whatever is happening, without trying to change it or judge it. We live in a world that often tells us that something is wrong with us if we don't feel happy all the time, if we are not constantly moving towards some goal. Mindfulness teaches us to accept life as it is, without the need for constant striving or self-criticism. Whether we are feeling joy, sadness, frustration, or peace, mindfulness teaches us to be with our experience without resistance. We don't need to fight our feelings or judge ourselves for having them. We simply observe and accept, knowing that all emotions are temporary and that they too shall pass. There is a profound healing that occurs through the practice of mindfulness. As we cultivate the ability to be present, we begin to heal the wounds that have been carried with us for so long. We stop living in the future, constantly striving for something that will never bring us lasting peace. We stop dwelling in the past, rehashing old memories and regrets. Instead, we begin to live in the present, where life is happening right now. Mindfulness opens the door to the present moment, where we can finally experience peace, without the need to look outside ourselves for it. The power of mindfulness lies in its ability to heal. When we bring our awareness to the present moment, we stop fighting against our pain. Instead of wishing things were different, we learn to be with what is. This doesn't mean that we ignore our struggles or push them aside. It means that we acknowledge them without judgment and allow them to be. We can experience pain, sadness, and anxiety without becoming overwhelmed by them. In this way, mindfulness creates a healing space where we can begin to transform our suffering into wisdom. Personal stories of those who have embraced mindfulness meditation often reflect this profound shift. One person may share how the simple practice of mindfulness helped them find peace in the midst of a chaotic life, how they learned to accept themselves as they are, without judgment. Another might talk about how mindfulness helped them find calm during a time of grief, teaching them to let go of expectations and to simply be with their sorrow. These stories are not unique. They are a reflection of the universal power of mindfulness to heal and to bring peace. However, mindfulness is not a magic cure that instantly transforms our lives. It is a practice that requires time, patience, and consistency. Like any skill, the more we practice, the more we develop the ability to stay present, to stay grounded, even in the face of life's challenges. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we become aware of the fleeting nature of all things, the passing of emotions, the impermanence of thoughts, the constant change of the world around us. This awareness brings a sense of relief, as we no longer feel the need to control everything. We learn to let go and to accept life as it comes, trusting that peace will always be available to us in the present moment. One of the greatest obstacles to mindfulness is the mental chatter that constantly fills our minds. We are bombarded with thoughts, worries, plans, and anxieties. Our minds are like a noisy room, constantly filled with distractions. But mindfulness offers us a way to quiet that noise. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to separate ourselves from the constant stream of thoughts. We learn that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. As we observe them, we begin to notice that they come and go, without any real control over us. We stop identifying with every thought that arises, and in doing so, we create a sense of calm. One of the most powerful ways to let go of mental chatter is through focused attention on the breath. This simple technique helps us anchor ourselves in the present moment, shifting our focus from the constant flow of thoughts to the calming rhythm of our breath. Whenever we find our minds wandering, we gently bring our focus back to the breath. This practice gradually quiets the mental noise, creating space for peace and clarity to emerge. Another activity to help cultivate mental stillness is body scan meditation. In this practice, we bring our awareness to each part of the body, from the tips of the toes to the top of the head, noticing any tension or discomfort. As we move through the body with our attention, we begin to release any tension, allowing ourselves to be present with our physical experience. This practice encourages us to become more attuned to our bodies, helping us connect with the present moment in a deeper way. It also provides a sense of relaxation and calm, as we release the mental and physical tension that we often carry with us. Through mindfulness and meditation, we learn to become more resilient in the face of life's challenges. We develop the ability to stay present, to accept our emotions without judgment, and to let go of the mental chatter that clouds our peace. Mindfulness gives us the tools to face the world with a calm, clear mind, no matter what comes our way. It reminds us that true peace is not something we need to search for outside of ourselves. It is something we already possess, waiting to be discovered in the present moment. By cultivating mindfulness, we open ourselves to the beauty and richness of each moment. We stop chasing after something that always seems just out of reach, and instead we allow ourselves to experience the fullness of life as it is. Through presence, we find the peace that we have always sought. Loneliness. It is a feeling that everyone encounters at some point in life, regardless of age, status, or circumstance. It is universal. Yet, in a world where constant connectivity and social validation are the norms, loneliness is often viewed as something to be feared or avoided. We see it as a negative state, something that must be cured at all costs, often by surrounding ourselves with distractions, people, or material possessions. But what if loneliness, instead of being a curse, is an invitation to a deeper understanding of ourselves, an opportunity for self-reflection, and a doorway to awakening? The Buddha taught that loneliness is not inherently negative. Instead of seeing it as something to be fixed or escaped from, we can begin to see it as a gift, a moment of stillness and clarity that invites us to reconnect with our true selves. Loneliness offers us the space to hear our own thoughts, to confront our own fears, and to re-examine the ways in which we engage with the world. When we feel lonely, we are faced with the opportunity to turn inward, to become more attuned to our inner world, and to rediscover the parts of ourselves that may have been overlooked or neglected in the hustle and bustle of daily life. In Buddhist teachings, loneliness can be a transformative experience. The Buddha himself spent many years in solitude, seeking enlightenment not through external validation, but by going inward, by sitting in silence and turning his attention to the deeper layers of his consciousness. Solitude, he discovered, was not something to avoid but something to embrace. It was in the silence that he found true understanding. In the stillness of solitude, he found clarity. And in the absence of external distractions, he found the inner peace that had eluded him. Loneliness, when embraced with the right mindset, can lead us to a profound understanding of ourselves. It is through facing this feeling that we can come to realize that we are never truly alone. In fact, loneliness is often a reflection of the deeper disconnect we feel from our own selves. We look outward, trying to fill the void with relationships, activities, or accomplishments, but the true source of connection lies within. To reconnect with our authentic selves, we must be willing to face the loneliness head-on, not as something to run from, but as something to sit with, to explore, and to learn from. When we stop running from loneliness, we start to discover the vastness of our own inner world. We realize that we do not need to depend on external factors for validation or fulfillment. Loneliness can be a mirror, reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that have been neglected, the parts of our lives that we have ignored, and the places where we have disconnected from our true essence. It is in the quiet moments of solitude that we can reconnect with who we truly are, beyond the roles we play and the masks we wear. The Buddhist perspective on solitude is a radical shift from the conventional view. Solitude is not seen as a form of punishment or deprivation, but as a powerful tool for spiritual growth. The Buddha's teachings emphasize that it is only in solitude that we can truly understand ourselves. When we are constantly surrounded by others, by noise, and by distractions, it becomes difficult to hear our own voice, to see ourselves clearly. Solitude provides the space for introspection, for self-inquiry, and for the cultivation of inner peace. In solitude, we are forced to confront our own thoughts and emotions without the buffer of external influences. We can no longer hide behind the distractions of the world. We must face ourselves, not in the reflection of others, but as we truly are. This can be a daunting experience, as it requires vulnerability and courage. But it is in this process of confronting our true selves that we find the freedom we have been searching for. By embracing solitude, we stop relying on others to define us. We stop looking for external validation and begin to build a relationship with the most important person in our lives, ourselves. Practices for embracing loneliness and solitude are key to cultivating this sense of freedom. One of the most powerful practices is meditation. Meditation allows us to sit with our thoughts, our emotions, and our sense of isolation without judgment. It teaches us to observe our loneliness without becoming overwhelmed by it. In meditation, we learn to sit in the present moment, to accept whatever arises without the need to change it. This practice helps us develop a sense of inner peace, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but comes from within. Another important practice for embracing loneliness is the cultivation of self-compassion. When we are alone, it is easy to become critical of ourselves, to feel that we are not enough, or that we are lacking in some way. But Buddhism teaches us to treat ourselves with the same kindness and compassion that we would offer to a dear friend. Instead of criticizing ourselves for feeling lonely, we can offer ourselves warmth and understanding. We can acknowledge our feelings without judgment, recognizing that it is natural to experience moments of loneliness. By cultivating self-compassion, we begin to heal the wounds that loneliness may bring, and we begin to build a deeper, more loving relationship with ourselves. The importance of creating a relationship with oneself cannot be overstated. We often look to others for validation, for love, and for a sense of belonging. But the relationship we have with ourselves is the most important one we will ever have. When we are able to cultivate love and acceptance for ourselves, we no longer feel the need to seek validation from others. We can stand on our own, secure in the knowledge that we are enough, just as we are. One of the most transformative practices for embracing solitude is the art of journaling. Writing down our thoughts and feelings provides a safe space to express our inner world. Journaling allows us to explore our emotions without fear of judgment. It helps us process our loneliness, our fears, and our hopes. By putting pen to paper, we externalize our internal struggles and begin to make sense of them. This practice can be incredibly liberating, as it allows us to explore our inner world in a tangible way. Another practice that can help us embrace loneliness is mindful walking. This practice involves walking slowly and deliberately, paying attention to each step, each breath, and each sensation. As we walk, we bring our full awareness to the present moment, allowing ourselves to be fully present with our surroundings. This simple practice helps us cultivate mindfulness and acceptance, allowing us to embrace the solitude of the present moment without resistance. As we learn to embrace loneliness, we discover that it is not something to fear but something to welcome. Through loneliness, we reconnect with ourselves, with our true nature, and with the present moment. We learn that we are never truly alone. We are always connected to the vastness of life and the universe. And it is in this realization that we find the freedom to be fully ourselves, to live authentically, and to experience the world with a deeper sense of peace and connection. Ultimately, loneliness is not a destination, but a doorway, one that, when opened with awareness, leads to spiritual awakening, personal growth, and the discovery of inner peace. It teaches us that we are enough, just as we are, and that the most important relationship we will ever have is the one we cultivate with ourselves. Through loneliness, we learn to become our own best companion, to sit in silence without fear, and to embrace the quiet spaces of our lives as opportunities for growth. Pain is an inescapable part of the human experience. It is often viewed as something to be avoided, a negative force that we must fight against at all costs. Yet in the Buddhist tradition, pain is not seen as a punishment or something to flee from. Rather, it is seen as a teacher, an invitation to look deeper within ourselves and to discover the wisdom hidden beneath the surface of our suffering. Pain, in its many forms, is not the enemy. It is the key to understanding, transformation, and ultimately, growth. The Buddha's teachings reveal that suffering is not only inevitable but essential to the human experience. It is through suffering that we come to understand the true nature of existence, that we uncover the layers of illusion and attachment that bind us. Pain opens the door to deeper truths, ones that we may otherwise remain blind to. It is the struggle against pain that sharpens our awareness, expands our consciousness, and teaches us the value of resilience, compassion, and acceptance. In this way, suffering becomes a tool, a guide that leads us on the path to spiritual awakening. Pain as a teacher. The notion that pain can be a teacher may seem counterintuitive. After all, why would we ever consider suffering to be something that can benefit us? Pain, by its very nature, feels overwhelming, intolerable, and difficult to endure. Yet, when we allow ourselves to experience pain without resistance, we begin to understand its deeper purpose. The Buddha taught that suffering reveals the impermanence of all things. It shows us that nothing in life is fixed or permanent, and in that realization, we are given the opportunity to release our attachments to the things that bind us. Pain, in all its forms, be it emotional, physical, or spiritual, acts as a mirror. It reflects back to us the places in our lives where we are holding on too tightly, where we are resisting the natural flow of life. Our attachment to comfort, security, and permanence creates suffering. But when we let go of these attachments, we are liberated from the grip of pain. The more we resist our suffering, the more it persists. But when we face it with open-hearted acceptance, we allow it to teach us, to transform us. In Buddhist philosophy, the idea of dukkha, or suffering, is seen as a fundamental aspect of existence. However, this concept is not simply about the pain we endure. It is about the truth that suffering can reveal to us. When we confront our suffering directly, we begin to uncover the deeper layers of our psyche. We realize that our pain often comes from within, the result of our own attachments, our desires, and our fears. By facing our suffering head-on, we are given the opportunity to untangle these knots within ourselves, to release the things that no longer serve us, and to embrace the present moment with greater clarity and peace. Through this lens, pain is not a punishment but a teacher that guides us toward a more authentic and awakened way of being. It is the doorway through which we can step into deeper wisdom, understanding, and compassion. When we stop viewing pain as something to avoid, we can begin to see it as an integral part of our journey, an opportunity to discover more about who we are and what we truly need in order to find peace. The deeper meaning of hardship and how to find wisdom through pain. Hardship, too, is often seen as an obstacle to happiness, something that gets in the way of our ideal lives. We often ask, why me? When faced with suffering, as though it is a personal attack or an unjust burden placed upon us. But in Buddhism, hardship is not viewed as something random or punitive. Rather, it is seen as an essential part of the human experience, a necessary challenge that helps us grow. Through hardship, we learn resilience. We develop the strength to keep going when we feel like giving up. We learn to endure and to find meaning in the midst of difficulty. Pain brings clarity by stripping away the distractions of life, forcing us to confront what really matters. It helps us discover our inner resources, our ability to endure, and our capacity to love even in the face of suffering. It is through hardship that we are refined, like gold being purified by fire. The harder the trial, the stronger we become. In times of suffering, it can feel like there is no end in sight, like the weight of our pain will crush us. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that the potential for transformation lies. Suffering has the capacity to open our hearts and minds, if we allow it to. The Buddha's teachings encourage us to sit with our pain, to observe it without judgment, and to let it reveal the wisdom that lies hidden within. When we stop trying to control or escape our suffering, we can begin to understand its deeper meaning. We see that pain is not random or pointless, but a call to action, a reminder to look within, to examine our beliefs, and to discover the things that keep us stuck. Through mindfulness and meditation, we can learn to observe our suffering with equanimity. Instead of becoming overwhelmed by it, we can learn to see it as a passing storm, something that will eventually pass if we allow it to. We begin to see that we are not our suffering and that it does not define us. By witnessing our pain without attachment or resistance, we are able to transcend it, using it as a stepping stone to deeper understanding and growth. Buddhist practices for transforming suffering. The practices of mindfulness, meditation, and self-inquiry are the cornerstone of transforming suffering into wisdom. In the face of pain, these tools allow us to maintain clarity, compassion, and presence. They help us develop the inner strength to face life's challenges with grace and equanimity. Mindfulness meditation, in particular, is an essential practice for transforming suffering. Through mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions as they arise, without becoming consumed by them. Instead of reacting impulsively to pain, we begin to observe it with curiosity. What is this pain teaching me? What is it showing me about myself? Through this practice of non-judgmental awareness, we create a space between ourselves and our suffering. This space allows us to choose how to respond to pain, instead of reacting automatically or from a place of fear or resistance. Another powerful Buddhist practice for transforming suffering is metta, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice encourages us to send love and compassion to ourselves and to others, especially during times of difficulty. In moments of pain, we can close our eyes and silently offer ourselves words of kindness, such as, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease." By cultivating loving kindness toward ourselves, we create a sense of peace and acceptance that allows us to navigate suffering with a compassionate heart. Through these practices, we begin to see that suffering is not an obstacle to our growth, but an invitation to awaken. It is through facing our pain with mindfulness and compassion that we transform it, turning it from a burden into a blessing. As we practice these techniques, we build emotional resilience. We develop the capacity to face life's inevitable challenges without becoming overwhelmed by them. We learn that we are not helpless in the face of suffering. We have the power to transform it. The wisdom of emotional rebirth. When we allow ourselves to face our pain, to sit with it and learn from it, we experience what can be called an emotional rebirth. This process is not about bypassing or suppressing pain. It is about allowing ourselves to be fully present with it, to experience it deeply, and to let it guide us toward greater wisdom. In Buddhism, this transformation is akin to the process of rebirth, where our old self, defined by suffering and attachment, is shed, and a new, awakened self is born. The wisdom gained through this emotional rebirth is profound. We no longer see ourselves as victims of our pain. Instead, we recognize that our suffering has the potential to awaken us to deeper truths about life and our place in the world. It is through facing pain with courage and compassion that we develop the wisdom to navigate life with greater clarity, understanding, and love. Personal struggles, when viewed through the lens of Buddhism, are not just obstacles. They are opportunities for growth. They provide us with the raw material we need to build emotional resilience, to develop greater empathy, and to cultivate the strength to face whatever comes our way. When we transform our struggles into wisdom, we stop seeing them as burdens and begin to see them as stepping stones on our spiritual journey. One activity that can help in transforming personal struggles into wisdom is journaling. Writing about our pain allows us to externalize our emotions and gain perspective on them. Through journaling, we can explore the root causes of our suffering, and in doing so, uncover the lessons hidden within it. As we write, we may begin to see patterns or insights that were not apparent before, helping us to reframe our experience and view it from a place of understanding rather than victimhood. Another practice for transforming suffering is loving-kindness meditation towards others who may be causing us pain. In moments of conflict, instead of harboring resentment or anger, we can send love and compassion to the people involved. By doing so, we release the emotional hold that the situation has on us, and we free ourselves from the toxic grip of negative emotions. The process of transforming suffering into wisdom is not an easy one, but it is one that holds the potential for profound growth. As we embrace our pain and learn from it, we discover that suffering is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a gateway to deeper understanding, greater compassion, and a life of greater freedom and peace. Through pain, we are reborn, and through this rebirth we find our truest selves. Love. It is a word that carries so much weight, so much power, and yet it often feels elusive when we need it most. We speak of love in countless ways: romantic love, familial love, the love between friends. But there is a deeper love, a love that transcends all the conditional aspects we often place on it, a love that is unconditional, boundless, and infinitely healing. This love is the love we must first extend to ourselves and then share with others. It is a force that has the power to heal even the deepest wounds of loneliness and depression, the wounds that feel impossible to soothe. In Buddhism, love and compassion are not just emotions. They are practices, transformative energies that can reshape the very fabric of our being. The Buddha's teachings emphasize that love is not confined to any one person or relationship. Rather, it is a universal force that connects all beings. This love, when practiced intentionally, has the power to heal the heart, to transform suffering, and to bring us into alignment with our highest selves. It is through love that we find healing, and it is through compassion that we create the space for true peace. The power of love both for ourselves and others. When we talk about love in the Buddhist context, we are not referring to the fleeting, conditional love that so often comes with expectations and attachment. We are speaking of unconditional love, a love that is given freely without expecting anything in return. This kind of love begins with ourselves. Before we can truly offer love to others, we must first learn to love ourselves. We must cultivate a deep sense of self-compassion, accepting ourselves with all our imperfections, flaws, and struggles. Love for ourselves is the foundation of healing. It is the antidote to the harsh self-criticism that so often accompanies feelings of loneliness and depression. When we are mired in self-doubt and insecurity, It is easy to believe that we are unworthy of love. We may feel isolated, as though there is something inherently wrong with us. But Buddhist teachings remind us that we are all deserving of love simply because we exist. We do not need to earn it or prove our worth. Love is our birthright. Love for ourselves is not about narcissism or selfishness. It is about recognizing our intrinsic worth as human beings and offering ourselves the same kindness and care that we would offer a dear friend. When we learn to love ourselves, we stop seeking external validation for our worth. We no longer rely on others to tell us we are lovable. Instead, we find that inner validation, that sense of peace that comes from accepting ourselves fully and completely. This love has the power to heal the wounds of loneliness and depression because it shifts our focus from lack to abundance. We begin to see that we are enough, just as we are. This self-love naturally extends outward. When we are able to love ourselves unconditionally, we are better able to offer that same love to others. Compassion for others begins with compassion for oneself. It is only when we accept our own imperfections that we can begin to accept the imperfections of others. This acceptance creates space for healing, both for ourselves and for those we encounter. We stop viewing others through the lens of judgment, and instead we see them as they truly are, human beings, imperfect and struggling just like us. Buddhist teachings on love as a transformative and healing force. Buddhism teaches that compassion, or karuna, is a vital force in the world. It is a deep, active caring for the suffering of others, and it is what allows us to connect with others at a level beyond words. Compassion is not just about feeling sympathy for someone else's pain. It is about actively wishing to alleviate that suffering. Compassion is a transformative power because it does not stop at mere understanding. It compels us to act, to ease suffering wherever we see it, and in doing so it heals both the giver and the receiver. The Buddha himself embodied compassion, not only through his teachings but through his actions. His compassion was boundless, reaching all beings, regardless of their status or identity. This compassion did not come from a place of superiority, but from a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. He understood that to truly heal, we must see the suffering of others as our own and act from a place of shared humanity. When we practice compassion, we begin to see the world through the eyes of others. We understand that suffering is universal, and that by alleviating the pain of others, we also heal ourselves. This practice transforms our hearts, helping us move beyond our own limited concerns and connect with the larger whole. It expands our sense of self beyond the confines of our own individual experience and opens us to the vast web of relationships that define our lives. Developing unconditional compassion. One of the greatest challenges of compassion is learning to be compassionate not only toward others but toward ourselves. We are often our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to standards that are impossible to meet. We tell ourselves we are not enough, that we should be better, that we should be more successful, more capable, more worthy of love. But these thoughts are not the truth. The truth is that we are deserving of love, kindness, and compassion simply because we exist. In Buddhism, the practice of loving-kindness meditation, or metta, is a powerful tool for cultivating this unconditional compassion. It is a practice in which we intentionally direct feelings of love and goodwill toward ourselves and others. We begin by offering loving-kindness to ourselves, silently repeating phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I live with ease." Over time, this practice shifts our internal dialogue, helping us to replace self-criticism with self-compassion. As we cultivate love for ourselves, we can then extend that love to others. We can offer kindness and compassion to those who have hurt us, those who are suffering, and even those we may not fully understand. Through this practice, we learn that compassion is not limited. It expands and grows as we share it. In times of difficulty, compassion becomes even more essential. When we face personal challenges, whether they are related to our health, relationships, or life circumstances, It is easy to become consumed by self-pity or frustration. But through the practice of compassion, we learn to meet our struggles with kindness rather than judgment. We begin to accept that hardship is part of the human experience, and we treat ourselves with the same care and understanding that we would offer to someone we love deeply. Self-compassion helps us heal not by fixing or denying our pain, but by acknowledging it and offering ourselves understanding, patience, and kindness. This is the heart of mental health, the ability to be gentle with ourselves, to give ourselves space to feel, to struggle, and to grow. It is through this love and acceptance that we can begin to heal, not from the outside in, but from the inside out, opening the heart through loving kindness. The practice of loving kindness meditation is not just about sending love to others. It is about opening the heart, breaking down the walls we have built around it. It is about breaking through the barriers of fear, anger, and resentment, and allowing ourselves to feel deeply, to love freely, and to connect with the world in a way that transcends our individual suffering. In this meditation practice, we start with ourselves, offering ourselves love and kindness. Then we expand that love to others, loved ones, acquaintances, strangers, and even those we have difficulty with. Finally, we extend love to all beings everywhere. This practice softens the heart, making it more receptive to the suffering of others, and more willing to act in ways that alleviate that suffering. As we practice loving kindness, we begin to see the world differently. We no longer view others through the lens of judgment or expectation. We see them as fellow travelers on this shared journey, each with their own struggles and triumphs. We see the inherent goodness in every person, and we recognize the potential for love and healing in every interaction. In this way, loving kindness becomes not just a practice, but a way of life. The impact of compassion on healing both internally and externally. Compassion is a healing force both internally and externally. Internally, compassion allows us to heal the wounds of the past. It helps us release the shame, guilt, and fear that we often carry, and it opens the door to self-acceptance and peace. Externally, compassion has the power to transform our relationships, our communities, and the world. When we act with compassion, we create a ripple effect that spreads beyond us. We inspire others to act with kindness, to be more loving, and to approach the world with open hearts. As we cultivate love and compassion, we not only heal ourselves, but we contribute to the healing of the world. Compassion is not a finite resource. The more we give, the more we receive. And through this cycle of giving and receiving, we create a world where love and understanding are the guiding forces, not fear or division. In the end, compassion is the cure for all wounds, whether they are of the heart, the mind, or the spirit. Love and compassion are the keys to healing. They are the antidotes to loneliness, depression, and pain. Through the practice of loving kindness, we open our hearts, not only to others but to ourselves. And in this openness, we find the peace and freedom that we have been seeking all along. Life, with all its joys and challenges, its highs and lows, can often feel like a chaotic whirlwind. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention, urging us to strive for more, to achieve, to accumulate, to reach for a distant future. In this relentless pursuit, we often lose sight of the present moment, the only place where true peace can be found. We forget that peace is not something to chase, not something to attain in the future, but something to be experienced right now, in this very moment. The Buddha's teachings offer us a profound shift in perspective, one that can radically transform the way we experience life. He invites us to live from a place of presence and acceptance, to stop chasing after happiness and start cultivating it in the present moment. This, he tells us, is the path to lasting peace. By embracing the now, by practicing mindfulness, we can free ourselves from the anxiety of the past and the uncertainty of the future. We learn to settle into the present moment, to fully inhabit it, and in doing so, we create space for joy and peace to enter our lives, living from a place of presence and acceptance. At its core, Buddhism teaches that the key to lasting peace is found in the acceptance of what is. We are constantly told to want more, to constantly push ourselves to do better, to achieve more, to acquire more. But this never-ending cycle can leave us exhausted and unfulfilled. When we are constantly striving for something in the future, we miss the richness of the present. The present moment, the now, is all we truly have. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, and all that exists is right here, right now. Living from a place of presence means stopping, pausing, and simply being. It means letting go of the need to control every moment, to anticipate every outcome. It is about surrendering to the flow of life and allowing ourselves to be fully engaged with what is happening right now. When we cultivate mindfulness, we learn to witness our thoughts, feelings, and experiences without judgment. We observe them with compassion and curiosity, accepting them as part of the ever-changing landscape of our lives. This practice of mindfulness, of being fully present, can lead to a profound sense of inner peace. Instead of constantly thinking about what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow, we can focus on the sensations of this moment. Whether it's the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of birds in the trees, or the simple act of breathing, we can find peace in the smallest of moments. By learning to embrace the present, we begin to let go of the constant pressure to do, to achieve, to be more. We allow ourselves the freedom to simply exist and to experience the fullness of life. Living in the now doesn't mean that we ignore our responsibilities or the challenges ahead. It simply means that we do so with a sense of ease and acceptance. When we let go of the need to control the future, we are no longer anxious about what may or may not come. Instead, we engage with life from a place of balance, understanding that all we can control is how we respond to the present moment. This is where true peace resides, embracing change, love, and letting go. The path to lasting peace also requires us to embrace the impermanent nature of life. Everything is constantly changing, from our thoughts and feelings to the world around us. Nothing is static, and yet so much of our suffering comes from our attachment to things as if they were permanent. We hold on to relationships, possessions, and ideas, believing that they will bring us happiness and security. But when these things inevitably change or fade away, we are left with a sense of loss and emptiness. Buddhism teaches us to embrace change, not as something to fear or resist, but as an inevitable and natural part of life. Change is not the enemy. It is the very fabric of existence. When we stop clinging to the past or resisting the future, we open ourselves up to the flow of life. We can live with a sense of freedom, knowing that we are not bound by what has come before or what may come next. Instead, we are free to experience each moment as it is, without fear or attachment. Letting go is one of the most important practices in the Buddhist path to peace. When we let go of attachment, whether it's to people, things, or outcomes, we release the mental and emotional burdens that weigh us down. We free ourselves from the need to control and possess, and in doing so, we create space for peace to enter our lives. This practice of letting go is not about denying our feelings or avoiding discomfort. It is about acknowledging that everything is temporary and that by letting go, we are not losing something, but rather making room for something new to emerge. The role of compassion in this process cannot be overstated. Compassion is the key to letting go, as it helps us to see others and ourselves with understanding and love. When we approach life with compassion, we stop judging ourselves and others for the mistakes we've made, the pain we've caused, or the pain we've suffered. Instead, we recognize that we are all doing the best we can with what we have. Compassion allows us to release the need for perfection, both in ourselves and others. It helps us to forgive, to accept, and to let go. As we cultivate compassion, we begin to realize that our peace does not depend on others' actions or approval. It depends on our ability to embrace the present, to accept change, and to live with love and compassion for ourselves and the world around us. Compassion teaches us that we are enough, just as we are, and that we can release our fears, attachments, and expectations in order to experience life as it is, in its full, imperfect beauty. The final invitation, a call to action. The journey to lasting peace is not an easy one, and it is not a destination. It is a practice, a way of being in the world. As you move forward, I invite you to begin your journey toward peace and emotional healing using the Buddhist practices we have explored. Whether you are struggling with loneliness, depression, or any other form of suffering, know that peace is always within your reach. It begins with acceptance, with mindfulness, with compassion, and with the willingness to embrace life as it is. Start by practicing mindfulness in your daily life. Take a few moments each day to simply be present, to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Cultivate a sense of gratitude for the present moment and notice how it shifts your experience of life. Practice self-compassion, offering yourself the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a loved one. And above all, embrace change, knowing that it is a natural part of life and a doorway to transformation. I encourage you to reflect on the teachings shared here and to make them your own. Take what resonates with you and integrate it into your life. The path to peace is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about showing up for yourself, day after day, and doing the inner work to create the life you desire. It is about letting go of the things that no longer serve you and embracing the beauty and impermanence of each moment. As you begin this journey, remember that peace is not something to find outside of yourself. It is already within you. It always has been. You have the power to create the peace you seek by living from a place of presence, acceptance, love, and compassion. Let go of the need to control and embrace life as it is. With each step, you will find more peace, more clarity, and more joy. This is your path to lasting peace, one moment at a time. As we journey through life, we often encounter moments where we are confronted by the deep, sometimes overwhelming presence of suffering. Suffering, in its many forms, seems to be a universal experience, one that transcends age, culture, and background. From the aching loneliness that often fills our hearts to the crushing weight of depression, we all face pain in different ways. Yet, the way we approach our suffering determines the path we walk and the wisdom we gain from it. This journey, explored through the teachings of Buddhism, invites us to shift our perspective on suffering, not as something to avoid or resist, but as something to understand, embrace, and learn from. Through these teachings, we come to recognize that suffering is not inherently negative. It is not a punishment or a sign that we are broken. Rather, suffering is a natural part of life, an inevitable process that can reveal deep truths and opportunities for spiritual growth. It is through suffering that we come to understand the impermanence of all things, the transient nature of our emotions, and the beauty of the present moment. The core of Buddhist wisdom lies in the practice of mindfulness, a powerful tool that allows us to be present with our pain and suffering, to observe it without judgment, and to accept it without resistance. By being fully present in the moment, we free ourselves from the constant cycle of worry and anxiety that often plagues our minds. We stop living in the past, consumed by regrets and old wounds, and we stop living in the future, fearful of what might come. Instead, we embrace the now, understanding that it is the only place where true peace can be found. But the path to peace is not a simple one. It requires the cultivation of several key qualities, starting with self-compassion. To truly heal, we must learn to offer ourselves the same kindness and care that we would offer to a loved one. Self-compassion is the foundation of all healing. It allows us to face our pain with love, not judgment, and to recognize that our suffering does not define us. Through self-compassion, we open the door to forgiveness and acceptance, both of ourselves and others. Non-attachment, too, plays a critical role in our journey toward peace. We are often attached to the things that we believe will bring us happiness, whether it's a relationship, a job, or a material possession. Yet, as we know all too well, these things are impermanent, and when they change or fade, we are left with a sense of loss and emptiness. The teachings of Buddhism remind us that nothing in life is permanent. Happiness, sorrow, success, and failure, all of these things are fleeting. The practice of non-attachment teaches us to appreciate life without clinging to it, to love without possession, and to live without the need for control. It frees us from the fear of loss and opens us to the beauty of life as it is. Through love and compassion, we also find healing. Love, both for ourselves and others, is the transformative force that allows us to release the weight of suffering and open our hearts to the present moment. Compassion is not just an emotion, it is a practice, a way of seeing the world with kindness and understanding. It is through compassion that we begin to heal the wounds of the heart, both our own and those of others. When we practice compassion, we create a space where peace can thrive. We stop judging ourselves and others, and we learn to accept the inherent imperfection in all things. However, perhaps the most profound teaching is that of embracing impermanence. Change is inevitable. Every part of our lives, from our emotions to our relationships to our very existence, is in constant flux. The more we try to hold on to what is fleeting, the more we suffer. Buddhism teaches us to embrace change, to see it not as something to fear, but as an essential part of life. By embracing the impermanence of life, we free ourselves from the fear of loss and begin to live with a sense of openness and possibility. As we walk this path, we realize that suffering is not something to be feared. It is not something that will break us. It is, instead, the vehicle that can carry us to greater understanding, greater compassion, and greater wisdom. Each moment of suffering carries with it the potential for transformation. We don't have to seek suffering out, it will find us in its own time. But when it does, we can meet it with mindfulness, with love, and with acceptance. We can allow it to teach us what we need to know, and through this process, we will emerge stronger, wiser, and more at peace than before. The practice of mindfulness meditation, especially, provides a powerful means of transforming suffering into wisdom. Through meditation, we create space between ourselves and our emotions. We learn to observe them without becoming them. We stop reacting impulsively and start responding with awareness and clarity. This practice does not eliminate pain, but it changes how we relate to it. We no longer see pain as an enemy. We see it as a teacher, one that will eventually lead us to a place of peace and understanding. But the true magic happens when we allow ourselves to embrace vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to feel the depth of our emotions, to sit with our pain without running away from it, we give ourselves the chance to heal. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the courage to face ourselves fully and authentically. It is through embracing vulnerability that we are able to experience true emotional rebirth, shedding the layers of self-doubt and fear, and stepping into a life of freedom, compassion, and peace. So, what can we learn from this journey? First and foremost, we learn that peace is not something external. It is not something we can achieve through possession, success, or the approval of others. Peace is an internal state of being, one that comes from embracing the present moment, accepting ourselves and others, and releasing our attachments. It is a peace that arises when we stop fighting against the flow of life and start flowing with it. We also learn that suffering is not our enemy. It is a natural part of the human experience, and it carries with it the potential for growth and transformation. Instead of running from our pain, we can sit with it, observe it, and learn from it. Through suffering, we discover who we truly are, beyond the labels and judgments we place upon ourselves. We discover our resilience, our capacity for love, and our ability to find peace, no matter what life brings. Finally, we learn that love and compassion are the keys to healing. It is through love for ourselves and others that we find the strength to move through pain. Compassion is what allows us to release judgment, to accept ourselves and others as we are, and to live with an open heart. Love and compassion are the forces that will carry us through the darkest times, helping us emerge stronger, wiser, and more at peace than before. The lesson here is clear. Peace is not found by escaping suffering but by embracing it. It is through mindfulness, acceptance, love, and compassion that we transform our pain into wisdom and our suffering into peace. We don't need to look for peace outside of ourselves. It is already within us, waiting to be discovered in the present moment. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this perspective on suffering and peace? How have you applied these teachings in your own life? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below so we can learn from each other's experiences. Together, we can support one another on this journey of transformation. And if you found these teachings helpful and inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to the Buddhism in Every Moment channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing meaningful content and to create more videos that help guide us toward peace, love, and wisdom in our everyday lives. Thank you for being part of this community, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you.